Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of Wicked Whispers, where the shadows come alive and nightmares whisper their secrets.
The night air was still, save for the distant rustle of wind through the trees. In the darkness, the old cemetery of Eldridge lay shrouded in a dense, curling mist. The moon, half hidden behind veils of cloud, cast a spectral light over the gravestones, their shadows stretching long and menacing across the cracked paths. The cemetery, established in the early 19th century, held within its boundaries a rich tapestry of history and mystery, woven with the threads of countless lives and untold stories. Legends whispered through the ages spoke of the restless souls that lingered in this hallowed ground. For years, the cemetery had been a place of fascination for those drawn to the supernatural. The locals spoke of eerie sightings, inexplicable sounds, and ghostly apparitions. Some said the veil between the living and the dead grew thin here, allowing the spirits of the past to walk among the living. I approached the cemetery's wrought iron gate, which creaked ominously as I pushed it open. The chilling air seemed to envelop me, and the ground felt uneven beneath my feet as I ventured into the labyrinth of gravestones. I was armed with a flashlight, a voice recorder, and an insatiable curiosity about the spectral phenomena that had captivated my imagination for so long. As the fog thickened around me, I knew this night would reveal the haunting truths that lay hidden in the cemetery's depths. Elizabeth Thornton's story was one of the most compelling and tragic tales associated with the old cemetery. In the late 1800s, Elizabeth was a young woman admired for her beauty and grace. Her engagement to James, a soldier, was the highlight of the town's social calendar. But fate dealt a cruel hand. James was called to fight in a distant war and was killed in battle before he could return home. Elizabeth, heartbroken and inconsolable, spent her days at the cemetery, clinging to the hope that James might somehow return. Her sorrow was so profound that it seemed to seep into the very earth where she spent her time. As Elizabeth's health deteriorated, her once vibrant spirit gave way to a despondent and frail figure. She died a few years later, still grieving the love she had lost. Her final resting place, a modest grave adorned with a simple stone, became a focal point for ghostly encounters. Visitors to the cemetery reported seeing a spectral woman in a flowing white gown drifting among the graves, her face etched with eternal sadness. Some described feeling a sudden chill, an overwhelming sense of grief that seemed to emanate from the figure. I stood by Elizabeth's grave, the fog swirling around me, and for a moment, the atmosphere seemed charged with a presence that was both palpable and deeply sorrowful. The legend of Elizabeth Thornton felt almost tangible in the oppressive stillness of the night. Another prominent tale from the old cemetery involved a mass grave of soldiers who had died in an obscure skirmish. The soldiers, their lives lost in a conflict largely forgotten by history, were buried in a hurriedly prepared plot without proper markers or honors. Over time, their final resting place became lost to memory, and their spirits were said to wander the cemetery in search of recognition. In the 1920s, a local historian named Thomas Mitchell embarked on a quest to uncover the truth about the soldiers' final resting place. Armed with maps and records, Thomas spent countless nights in the cemetery, hoping to locate the mass grave and shed light on the soldiers' forgotten sacrifice. One night, as he pored over his documents, he began to hear the distant sound of marching boots and unnerving, rhythmic noise that seemed to come from nowhere. His flashlight flickered erratically, casting long, unsettling shadows across the gravestones. As he adjusted his equipment, he glimpsed ghostly figures moving among the grave's shadowy, indistinct forms that appeared to march in formation. The temperature dropped suddenly, and Thomas felt an icy draft that sent shivers down his spine. The apparitions vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only the cold silence of the cemetery. Thomas's experience left him with an unsettling sense of awe and a deep respect for the soldiers' spirits, forever bound to their final resting place. Thomas Riley, a prominent figure in Eldridge's early history, had been buried in the cemetery with a distinctive gravestone marking his final resting place. However, as the cemetery fell into disrepair over the years, Riley's grave became lost, and the stone vanished. The mystery of Riley's missing grave became another thread in the cemetery's rich tapestry of legends. In the 1950s, a team of amateur paranormal investigators decided to search for Riley's lost resting place. Equipped with modern technology cameras, voice recorders, and electromagnetic field meters. They began their investigation near the area where Riley's grave was believed to have been. As they worked, they reported strange occurrences, tools moved on their own, inexplicable cold spots, and eerie whispers that seemed to drift on the wind. One investigator, Sarah, reported seeing a shadowy figure, a man dressed in period clothing, wandering among the trees. The figure appeared to be searching for something, its movements erratic and desperate. When Sarah approached, the figure vanished, leaving behind only the cold, empty space where it had stood. Despite their efforts, the investigators found no physical evidence of Riley's grave, but the experience left them with a profound sense of unease and a heightened sense of reverence for the mysteries of the cemetery. One of the most poignant tales associated with the old cemetery was that of a little girl who had died tragically in an accident. Her ghost was said to be seen playing among the gravestones, her presence marked by the sound of childish laughter that echoed through the night. In the 1980s, a mother and her young daughter visited the cemetery to pay their respects to a deceased relative. As they wandered through the overgrown paths, Emily, the daughter, stopped suddenly. She pointed to a small figure in the distance, a girl dressed in old-fashioned clothing, playing near a grave. The figure seemed to be interacting with an invisible friend, her movements graceful and innocent. The mother, initially skeptical, was struck by the sight. The little girl's laughter, faint and hauntingly sweet, filled the air. The atmosphere seemed to shift, and the cemetery's somber ambience was momentarily replaced by a sense of warmth and comfort. The mother and daughter watched in awe as the apparition vanished, leaving behind only the lingering echo of a child's laughter. The final tale from the old cemetery involved the ghost of the cemetery keeper, a man who had dedicated his life to maintaining the grounds. After his death, it was said that his spirit continued to care for the cemetery, ensuring that the graves were properly tended and the grounds remained a place of respect. In the early 2000s, a group of volunteers arrived at the cemetery to undertake a cleanup project. The cemetery had fallen into neglect, and the volunteers hoped to restore it to its former glory. As they worked, they saw a figure in old-fashioned clothing moving among the graves. The figure appeared to be assisting with the cleanup, straightening stones and clearing away debris.